Game of Thrones is a popular US TV drama at present. Millions of audiences are deeply attracted by the plot twisted. But did you know that it is actually based on the true history of England? Long, long time ago, Britain was in a horrible dark era. The contradiction between the House of Lancaster and the House of York has lasted for 30 years. Shakespeare gave this story of civil war an ironic name, The Wars of Roses. The name comes from the two house emblem, the White Rose of York and the Red Rose of Lancaster. In the beginning of the story, it was a conflict between Margaret and Andrew and the Duke of York. Both of them would like to take control of the realm and protect it, for King Henry VI was a weak and useless king. In 1450, Duke of York marched into South and demanded to be in charge of England. It was Queen Margaret who was really running the country in the dark, and she considered the Duke of York as an invader. The relationship between the Queen and the Duke grew tension after Henry VI collapsed into a catatonic stupor because of the defeat in the Hundred Years' War. The Queen lost her power and the Duke of York finally made himself the realm protector. But a year later, Henry VI woke up. It was a disaster for the Duke of York. In 1455, the First Battle of St. Albans broke out, which was the first battle of the 30-year-long turbulence. In this battle, Duke of York and his ally, Earl of Warwick, defeated the king's army. The king was captured and 3 nobles were killed. What the duke had done had no differences from treason. The good intentions in the beginning now lead to the civil war. In October 10th, 1460, Duke of York took his last step. He demanded the Parliament to take the crown from Henry and give it to him. 2 weeks later, he became the protector again. It seems that he got everything he ever wanted, but the Queen was still a big threat. He gathered an army of 6,000 men to fight against Margaret. What he didn't expect was that Margaret has 12,000 men waiting for him. He should wait until the reinforcement instead of acting rashly. For the Duke of York, the winter has never been colder. With a bloodied papered crown, his head was cut and stuck on a pole displayed about the Mickle Gate in York.
Not soon after the Duke of York got himself killed, his son Edward took his revenge on the king. Now it has become a family hatred. Edward decided to take the initiative to attack. He gathered an army near Towton. There they met the army of House of Lancaster. On March 29th of 1461, the Battle of Towton broke out. 28 lords were involved in this battle, and 2.8 million of soldiers lost their lives. Both never happened in history. It brought a change of monarchs in England. With the victory, Edward displaced Henry VII and became Edward IV. Henry VII and Margaret fled to Scotland. Edward made England a short period of peace. He was very good at
diplomacy.
A lot of enemies were persuaded to be friends. Earl of Warwick was famous for his name, the Kingmaker. He was Edward's teacher and best ally, and he was in power. The relation between Edward and Warwick started to deteriorate sharply after Edward found his ambition. Soon the war broke out again. The king was going to kick down the ladder. In 1470, Warwick was forced to make allies with Henry VII and Margaret. He helped Henry VII to return to power, made Edward and his ally Richard, the Duke of Gloucester, the crime of treason. With the help of Charles the Bald, Edward launched a counterattack. Both Warwick and Henry VII died in 1471. It was the end of the Lancaster dynasty. In 1483, Edward IV died of illness. Before he died, He asked Richard, the Duke of Gloucester, to help his young son Edward fight by his will.
It was a big mistake for Edward IV to make such a decision. Edward could not ever imagine that the man he trusted so much would break his own promise. In Shakespeare's description, Richard was an evil man. He locked up and killed Edward V and his brother in the Tower secretly. When the princes were gone, he claimed himself the King of England, Richard III. Till now, the conflict became about the desire of power. When people were doubtful whether it was Richard who killed the young princess, an amazing woman named Bouffant realized Richard's true face. She wanted her son, Tutor, to take place of him, to be the king. However, Bouffant was unlucky as the thing got worse and worse for her. When her son first raised up a riot in 1483, he failed to coordinate with his ally. Luckily, he didn't lose his life. The second time was in 1485. He got the chance when the king was losing popularity.
The king's enemies became Tudor's allies. He was considered the rightful heir of the throne at both wars. Richard III was brutally murdered in a cove. His crown was found on the battlefield. The noble gave it to Tudor, who became Henry VII, and the Tudor dynasty began.
The Lords took Henry Tudor as the second Joshua to save people from the tyrant. In order to ease the political contradiction and strengthen the power, he married Elizabeth, the daughter of Edward IV, who was from the House of York. The conflict finally transformed into a compromise. The War of Roses was ended. To commemorate the war, England took rose as the national flower and changed the royal emblem to the red and white rose.